In this episode, we're going to explore ways for saving your deposit faster. Let's face it, if you can avoid having to save for the best part of a decade, it's worth doing whatever you can. Welcome to Your First Home Buyer Guide, the podcast for first home buyers who want to get it right.
I'm Megan and that was Veronica. We're both buyer's agents and probably old enough to be your mums. But that's a good thing because between us, we've got over 40 years experience and we are going to share with you bucket loads of stories about avoidable mistakes. Together, we're going to make sure that you get unbiased and real information that you can rely on so you can get where you want to be without missing a step.
Now, we've got loads of great tips for you in this episode, and if you'd like more useful tools, head over to the website homebuyeracademy.com.au. There you'll find free checklists that you can download, a free mini course on how to price a property, and our Where to Buy workshop for only $39. Priceless stuff, really.
Bargain. But before we get into the interesting stuff in this week's episode, here's the boring bit, the disclaimer. You, of course, know that nothing in this podcast is to be taken as personal advice. We always recommend getting the advice of an expert in their field of expertise. Now, we've done our very best to ensure that the content is correct at the time of recording, but things change. So check with the relevant government authority or your advisors to get the most up-to-date information. Today, we're talking about ways that you can speed up saving for your home deposit. Now, Veronica, I have been entertaining you all. For those who watch the episodes, I've been entertaining you all with interesting homes from around the world. Hopefully you can see where we are at the moment. We're actually in front of the Cube House in the Netherlands.
Is that one house or a series of houses?
It's a series of houses. Yeah. So it's quite a fascinating one. And the rooms are, actually, I apologise, it is a house. And each of those cubes are a room.
Ew. And they're all on angles. For anyone who's not actually watching this, every room is
angles.
Yeah. I mean, like you'd be, I don't know how you'd lie in bed. You'd be sort of in the bottom corner of the room, wouldn't you?
Pretty much. I've seen some photos internally and it is disturbing to say the least.
Yuck. Okay. Well, as architecture gone crazy. All right. Now, so it's a big topic of the moment, housing affordability, and the biggest hurdle facing first home buyers is finding their deposit. And in an ideal world, you need to save 20% plus purchasing costs, but that's a huge ask.
Yeah, it is. You could consider saving 10% plus costs if you're prepared to pay lender's mortgage insurance. And many mortgage brokers say there's even a sweet spot at 12%. And we've done the calculations on this. It is the unicorn.
Yes. So that's when you pay a little bit of mortgage insurance, but you don't have to spend all that extra time saving up that extra 8%. Now, of course, if you qualify for the federal government's deposit guarantee scheme, then you only need to save up 5%. But there's been, there were originally 10,000 spots in that per year. Now it's been upped to 20,000.
And that's with specific lenders too, Veronica. So it's not every financial institution that can access and secure you a place with that scheme.
Yep. And recently in the budget in 2021, there was the announcement of 2% deposit if you qualify for what's called the Family Home Guarantee as a single parent. Now, we note that there are only 10,000 places over 4 years for that one. And I would imagine not many single parents are going to be able to afford to repay the mortgage because you're borrowing 98% plus costs, right?
Yeah, but there's limitations on both of those schemes, and it's really important to do your research and know what those limitations are. There's price limitations, and they're different in capital cities versus regional locations, and particularly for the family home guarantee, it's quite a low price that you have to pay. So you want to be really careful that either of those schemes aren't limiting you. Deposit guarantee scheme doesn't limit you by price, but the family home guarantee does.
Yep, it does. They've all got sort of caps and restrictions, and they also are subject to change.
Oh, you don't have to buy new. You don't.
Yes,
I knew there was something we liked about that one, and it was you don't have to buy new.
We do like that. Yes.
There's so many, things that sit around these things. It's important to know them and not just go for them because they sound good on paper.
And so whether saving 2% or 20% or anywhere in between, you are going to have to save a deposit, right? The big qualifier, and the thing that's really important here is that even if you can save the deposit, so even if you get money gifted to you or you get those shortcuts to somehow get there faster, you do need income, and that is taxable income, in order to be able to borrow money for the rest of the purchase of the property. So income is very, very important. Whilst we talk about the biggest hurdle is saving that deposit, yes, that's true. Then you go through the process of actually getting finance and you need income to support a loan. So I don't want to sort of say that the only thing you have to worry about here is saving up the money. But
yeah, big conversation to have with a mortgage broker because not all income is treated equally either. So
very true.
A salary is treated differently to commission, differently to bonuses. Some institutions will take those sorts of bonuses and commissions into account, others won't. Some will discount them, some will extrapolate over a number of years. So the policies of the different financial institutions are going to change. So what your income isn't just what your last taxable tax return says. Sometimes they'll look further back if there are parts of your income that aren't fixed.
And here's a little trap for your old trick, in that some people might be tempted to do a bit of under the table work, cash in hand work, in order to help them save up or perhaps pay their living expenses while they're saving. But when it comes to actually getting the loan approved, none of that money counts. So yes, of course, it counts in terms of having a deposit, but it won't help your borrowing capacity. But
yes,
so how do you come up with such a large amount of money? So for a $650,000 property, for instance, if you're going to save up 20% deposit plus cost, you need to save up $165,000.
It's a big whack of money.
That's a lot. That's a lot. And notice that we're not mentioning stamp duty rebates that you get in some states for buying brand new property. We're not fans of buying brand new or off the plan. And often when whatever you save in that stamp duty is offset by the premium that you pay for a new build. So just as an aside.
That's very important. Now, some very boring advice. And notice how I get to say this bit.
You're so good at the boring advice.
Oh, the voice of reason. Well, there is no way to sugarcoat this. You're going to have to stop spending and start saving. Wow. Mm-hmm. How easy this is going to be will depend on your temperament and earning capacity. Of course, the best way is to never acquire a spending habit in the first place. Well, it's just a little bit hard. There's sales. When something's on sale, you really need it.
Come on,
be
really frugal. Need it? Frugal. Frugal is good.
Now, the minute you get your first pay packet, discipline yourself to save. You might choose that to be 10%. You might choose it to be 15%. A good number to try and focus on is 20%, so you never get used to having it. It's called paying yourself first. It's called saving or investing. What you're doing is investing in a deposit to buy property. It's paying yourself first before all those other things that you might want to spend your money on.
And there are loads of budgeting tools out there as well. And maybe we need to get an expert on for a future episode in terms of, how to actually set up your savings and accounts and all the rest of it. Now, there is a little bit of another leg up that the government gives first home buyers, which, we think is a good thing. And it's not relying on you buying brand new. So any government assistance that relies on you having to buy brand new or off the plan, we do not think is a good thing, but this is a good thing. And that's the First Home Super Saver Scheme. Now, the biggest benefit if you utilize this scheme is that you're saving not quite pre-tax dollars, but sort of almost pre-tax dollars. So instead of paying, if your taxable income is say 22%, you're going to, that means for every dollar you earn, you pay 22 cents in tax. Instead, you can actually just pay 15 cents in tax on every dollar and contribute that into your super rather than putting into a bank account to save up for your first home, right? So
let's clarify. This isn't the superannuation guarantee that your employer pays.
This is over that.
This is contributions that you will make over and above the minimum that your employer makes on your behalf. And it's really just a way of saving money in a tax-effective environment.
Absolutely. So
you can't take out any of that other superannuation. When you you can't use that as a contribution to your deposit. It's only the money that you put in over and above 10%. The statutory amount,
which is currently now 10%. And sort of currently the amount that you can save in your super and then draw back down on is $30,000, but that has been promised to change in the 2021 budget. It's not yet legislated though. So as of July 1st, 2022, it's been promised that you're going to be able to save $50,000 in there. And so if you saved that entire $50,000 and your tax was at 22%, you would make a saving of $3,500 over that period of time it took you to save that money. So, and that's not insignificant, and it's certainly that goes straight to your bottom line in terms of your deposit bottom line. And obviously, if you're in a higher tax bracket, your savings are higher than that.
Yeah. So, and not only that, so if you're in a higher tax bracket, I think you can accumulate this. That's each year you can make those contributions, or is it $15,000 per year over 2 years?
No, it's a total amount that you can save and then redraw in this sort of facility. There are some rules around this, and so
there's a lot of rules around this. Yeah,
you need to make sure, get a good accountant on board.
Yep.
So there are a lot of rules in terms of when you draw down and what you've got access to, et cetera, et cetera. But the maximum currently is $30,000 that you could pay extra into your super and then withdraw. And that will go up to $50,000. I don't think there's a time limit, although you've got a maximum amounts of contributions you can make every year into your super. Yes. So there's lots of caps and lots of stuff like that, but most people can't save $50,000 in a year.
Yeah, it's true. But here are some, we have spoken to a lot of first home buyers over the years. And recently we spoke to some very motivated young buyers, all of whom bought their property before the age of 25. Now, that's quite an achievement.
It is.
It does not mean that if you haven't bought a property by 25, you can't then buy a property. Like, you can actually buy your first property in your 40s.
Yep.
Just got to be really careful. You haven't got any room for error by then. So we asked them how they managed to get onto the property ladder. How did they save that deposit? Now, they shared some creative ideas, some of which you would have heard, and we've also added some pragmatic ones to the list. So, number one, I don't think you and I ever did this, Veronica, but it is a common strategy, and that is to move in with your parents.
Yeah.
If you save $400 a week on rent, that's over $20,000 per annum. You're nearly halfway there to that $50,000.
Yeah. It's, it's worth sucking it up with the oldies for a little bit, isn't it? Just to get 20 grand. As long as you got nice parents, they might charge you board, and if they charge you board, it's the same amount of money. Then don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. You got to think about your sanity at the same time. But then Mum might cook you dinner, so win-win.
Now, you can give up your morning coffee. Now, there's been a bit of a movement of people buying espresso machines and making coffee at home. That still does cost. We do that, and it's still $35 a bag of beans. And you got to buy all the milk and et cetera, et cetera. But if you gave up your morning latte, one a day adds up to over $1,400 a year.
Yep. So far you've saved $21,400 just with 2 steps.
Yes.
Pack your lunch and drink tap water. Well, I'd go filtered water, but I get what you're saying. A conservative saving of $10 a day equates to $2,300 per year, taking out the annual and public holidays in which you may choose to splurge. So far we're up to 23,700. That's it.
At the end of every day, here's a cool one. At the end of every day, put all of your coins and $5 notes in the jar. Now, to be honest, this suggestion, I think was made by somebody who saved their deposit pre-COVID, because there's not as many coins and notes out there these days. It's all tap and go. But one 20-something told me that she saved over $100 a month in this way. So basically that was just all coins and $5 notes in a jar, and that she saved $1,200 over 12 months just doing that.
remember my ex-husband used to put all of his coins in a jar, and I think we took $600 to the bank over just a couple of month period. So it's just coins left over from paying for something. But as you say, there's a lot less cash in circulation now. People are using a lot more of the tap and go. So, just those 4 tips come to $24,900. A little bit of discipline, a little bit of giving up to get to a better place, and certainly if you are also doing that 20% pay yourself first process of putting 20% of your income away, then depending on your income, you could be moving forward at a pretty rapid pace.
So, and that's nearly 25 grand a year with really minor changes to your lifestyle. But it's still going to take you 6.5 years to save enough for a $650,000 property, and prices are rising. So here's a few other ideas.
You could save a lot of money by getting rid of your car. Various motoring associations calculate the annual running costs at over $6,000 for even the smallest micro class. So rego, insurance for a basic car will probably set you back around $1,500 a year. There's a good saving. I mean, you've still got to get around. You've still got to pay for public transport. But what else could you do?
Well, there's Car Next Door. There's all sorts of these sort of car sharing. I'm going to go get. There's another one.
Yeah.
There are so many ways that you could actually spend a lot less on a vehicle. Plus, if you sold your car, then whatever money you get for that, you can stick straight into your savings account as well.
Yep.
So that's a one-off hit, a bonus, I guess, and also just those annual running costs. They creep up, and so I'm sure that you could pay a lot less by using public transport and using those more on-demand type car sharing apps and car sharing, or get on those little stupid bikes that you see everywhere.
You'd be really careful.
Everywhere.
And e-scooters are a big one in Brisbane at the moment. And in the course of 3 days, I've had 2 friends have accidents and end up battered and bruised from coming off those e-scooters. Excuse me. And there was a report in the paper the other day of a young man passing away after hitting a pole on one. So got it. Yeah, just a disclaimer there. Be careful about what sort of other alternate transport you're using.
Safe.
Be
safe.
safe.
Safe, right?
Gotta be safe. Yeah.
So
tell us about this. I don't know a lot about Car Next Door. What's that idea, Veronica?
See, those Queenslanders, they're just too much. Maybe these tips won't work for someone who lives in Brisbane because you've got too much ground to cover. You don't have very good public transport up there, do you?
Oh, stop it.
So, basically, if you really can't do without your wheels, perhaps you could actually join a neighbour-to-neighbour car share scheme yourself. So you could actually put your car out there to be made available for other people to rent and share. So according to Car Next Door, which is one of these it's not a ride share, it's a car share app, you could make between $2.5 grand and 10,000 profit per year, depending on your vehicle and how often you make it available.
So some other person drives your vehicle when you're not using it, you charge them a fee, and suddenly, ching, there's money going into the bank. Ooh.
It's the gig economy. And so if you've got something you can't sell and you can't do without, then maybe when you're not using it, someone else could use it.
So the voice of reason and the risk management in me comes back and says, don't forget to check with your insurer.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Disclaimer. These are just ideas. You need to research them.
You need to research these. Yeah, these are just ideas. So another thing you could do is partner up with a sibling or a trusted friend and look for the option of a more affordable investment property. Just make sure that you enter into a co-ownership agreement before you make any kind of commitments, and that should always include exit strategies. So what happens if?
Yes.
Someone loses a job, gets married, one wants to exit, the other one doesn't. All of these things, if you put them in a co-ownership agreement up front, legally binding, then everybody knows what's going to happen in every scenario. And there are great lawyers out there who have these, pretty much on tap that you can get drawn up.
I think
cannot stress enough how important that is.
Absolutely. I think we need to do an episode on co-ownership agreements. So stay tuned.
Put it on the list.
Stay tuned. And if you're an expert in co-ownership agreements, reach out.
Or if you have questions, because we love to have direct questions that we can weave into the episodes so that we're actually answering things that you want to hear about.
Absolutely. You could beg your parents for an advance on your inheritance. And I actually, and once again, you need agreements for this too, because they can lead to all sorts of sibling rivalry.
If you've got sibling, yeah.
I do know people who've done this and they've actually pre-gifted their inheritance, and so those that haven't drawn under or didn't need it, they just wait till the parents die, and everyone else is actually it's written into the will, it's written, and it's all very, very open and transparent. But why not try?
What else are they waiting for?
They want to help you, of course they do.
See you happy. No, I don't know. Sell it to them. And of course, they have to have the access to that money.
That's true.
Do not let your parents go into debt to give you part of your inheritance.
Do not.
Or a reverse mortgage. So, disclaimer. You could sell stuff, Veronica. Now, I know a lot of people who absolutely love getting onto Marketplace and selling anything they possibly can. When you're moving, if you're moving between rentals or anything, you've got a whole lot of stuff, great opportunity to sell down, make a little bit of money, pop that into your deposit account. Probably not a good idea to sell your grandmother or your sibling or your dog. You might want to hold on to those things for a little bit longer, but there might be some material objects that you could make some money out of.
Absolutely. And get a side hustle. The one thing about the gig economy, there's so many different ways you might be able to earn a few extra bucks. And so some people set up, little businesses, all sorts of creative things, particularly looking at if you had a real hobby that you're real passionate about and maybe that there's a bit of a market in that. I've spoken to a lot of first home buyers, not just first home buyers, but just people generally. In fact, COVID and lockdown, that's actually led to a lot of people actually setting up a little side hustle.
Really creative. Yeah.
In fact, Home Buyer Academy in a way is a side hustle, isn't it? We set it up in the first lockdown.
It was a little bit earlier.
We got her off the ground. We started doing the Facebook Lives in the first lockdown.
We did do the Facebook Lives. Yes, that's true. We had laid the foundations and then we got into it because we were homebound.
This is, but
well.
What I'd love though is if you're on Facebook and get onto the Home Buyer Academy page, and if you've got some more creative ideas on how you have saved extra money for your deposit, then share them, because I think this is a really cool, I love it, people's creative ideas, and particularly on the side hustle thing. What have you been doing?
What have you done to actually generate some extra income that hasn't impacted your permanent job? Because often side hustles aren't going to be looked at by a bank as being, full-time income. If a side hustle is a business that you've set up, you have to have at least 2 years of full trading records and tax returns. So don't bank on that being the way that you'll get a loan, but it's about helping you to save your deposit quicker.
Absolutely. Now, here's another way to set yourself a savings target. Work out the monthly repayments of your expected loan at, say, 7% interest. I mean,
which is very high at the moment. We're in 2021 and interest rates are low, but it's really, really good to have a buffer.
Maybe you could do it at 5%, but pick a percentage that is well over the sort of 2% that you're probably going to be able to get, or something like that. Because also interest rates will rise one day. Yep. And I think it's important for us all to know that as well. And then open a specific bank account and save that money every month without fail, because when you buy a property, you're going to have to make monthly repayments. Interest rates won't be low forever, and it is important that you budget accordingly. So if you can't afford to save that now, minus your rent, if you really can't move back in with mum and dad, then you potentially can't afford to service a loan if interest rates go up. So it's very, very important. So like if you were going to borrow $400,000, for instance, your repayments at 7% interest will be almost $32,000 over a year. And, it's a little bit sobering because, of course, people know that prices are rising. People know you've got to save such a lot of money in order to be able to get into the market. Then you think, oh, my God, but what if interest rates don't stay low forever? Oh, my God. So I think that that's a good discipline to have, and certainly to be aware of as well, because it's something that is probably going to happen at some point.
Keep in mind, but it's a good discipline to start saving that money. Keep in mind, some financial institutions, if you're paying rent, some financial institutions will actually take the rent that you're paying into account. So it's almost like you've been showing an ability to pay that over time, and some won't. So a good mortgage broker will help you understand that. Now, while you're at it, cut up your credit cards.
Yeah.
Get rid of them. Just at the very least, keep one card, but reduce the limit. Get it quite low, $500. Do you need any more than that? You should be paying your credit cards off every month before they're due, before you actually incur any interest. But keep it for emergencies. Or if you are disciplined enough and you have educated yourself very well in this space, you may use it to pay certain things, but make sure you're paying it off at the end of the month. So a financial institution is going to look at your credit card expenditures. They're going to look at your savings accounts. They're going to look at accounts with other institutions. They have an ability to access all of this information now. So you can't hide any of these things, and nor should you. You should be very, very open about them with the broker and the financial institution. But a big tip that we got from, I think Chris Bates gave it to us, was if you've got a credit card with, say, a $10,000 limit, but you always pay it off in time and you hardly spend any money on it, your borrowing capacity is actually reduced because you have a $20,000 limit. It's not the amount that's owed on the credit card that the bank's going to look at. It's the limit. So getting those limits down is actually more important than how much you spend on it every month.
Absolutely. Now, one last one, a little bit controversial. Don't get married. Recently I met a couple who gave up on their dreams of home ownership when they decided to spend $60,000 on a wedding. It's like, call me a cynic, but given that almost 50% of marriages end up in divorce in this country, your money will be way better used for a deposit on a home, particularly an A-grade asset that you can then sell when you get divorced. If you must get married, do it in your parents' backyard and get everyone to bring a plate.
Look, some of us still believe in love. It is possible to get married and stay married. You and I haven't had that experience.
No, we haven't managed it.
But people
don't blow a lot of money on the wedding. Just do it cheap.
That's the message, right? So if you're looking to, and don't go and buy a car. These things will affect your ability to save your deposit. That's your deposit. That's part of your deposit there. Even getting a lease on a vehicle will affect your borrowing capacity. So you've got to be really careful about what you're spending money on in the at least 12 months leading up to when you're actually going to buy a property. So ignore Veronica's advice there about marriage.
No.
She's not a marriage advisor. She's a property advisor.
I'm definitely not a relationship advisor. No.
Don't
but I've got plenty of experience. A word of warning: do not risk your savings. It might be tempting to think of Bitcoin or the share market as a great place to park that money while you're saving. But the problem is that's putting it at risk. Yeah. The bank is boring, but it's safe.
Absolutely. Now, we do have a little bit of good news, though. A number of studies have been done recently showing that loan repayments are actually easier to manage than they were for your parents. So once you get over that deposit hurdle, you might actually find things ease up a bit once you are the home owner and mortgage payer. In this episode, we've covered a very small part of our 10-step online course for first-time buyers. If you would like to learn more about the process and how to buy without making a mistake, then head over to our website, www.homebuyeracademy.com.au. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss an episode. And if you like what you've heard today, please give us an iTunes review. 5 stars would be wonderful. It will help others find us as well.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you found this really useful. And if you have, please share the love with others who you know are in the same boat. We'll be back next week with some more priceless stuff.